All right, so Jyare Davis commits to Syracuse, and now we are on Dakota Leffew. Watch.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everyone, in the Locked On Syracuse podcast. I'm Jackson Holzer. Thank you for making us your first listen of every single day on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I keep making this joke. We are still awaiting the new team for Dakota Leffew. And here to talk about it is Neil Adler from Inside the Loud House. So excited to have Neil back on the podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Okay, so Neil, how do you feel about the Jyare Davis pickup, first of all?
Well, first of all, my friend, thanks for having me on. As always, very, 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 very appreciative. I like it. I like it a lot. I guess the only kind of sticking point here, if we're looking at, strengths versus weaknesses in Davis's game, is he didn't shoot well from deep last year. Then again, a lot of the players on the Syracuse roster, minus Chris Bell, didn't shoot great from deep last year either. But I've talked to some analysts and read some scouting reports on him, and the consensus I get is that when he's got an open look and he's in rhythm, he can knock down a three. That's not necessarily his strong suit, but he can knock down a three here and there. And I don't necessarily think the Syracuse staff is counting on him to be one of their primary 3-point shooters per se. But Davis he's a really consistent producer, scorer, rebounder. He shoots free throws well. I talked to, and Jamie Shaw, obviously, he's been on the program, and he's one of the top scouts out there. I talked to him yesterday, and he said, listen, this guy's proven over the last few years he can score consistently. He rebounds well. Like I said, he shoots free throws well, and he's really good in the mid-range, and he's a good passer. And the bottom line is, with all the guys hitting the portal, leaving Syracuse, they needed another forward. They needed to, add some more depth in their front court. Obviously, they did it at the center spot with Lampkin, but from a forward perspective, small forward, power forward, I think and I wrote about it today, I think the trio of incoming freshmen, 5-star freshman, Donnie Freeman from DC, and Chris Bell, the incumbent starter at small forward, and now Davis is a nice trio of forwards that, and they all kind of bring something, I don't say different to the table, but they all have their strengths and their weaknesses, quote unquote. But Davis is a good scorer. He's a good rebounder, can do inside out, can hit a three. And I think the three of them, I'll be fascinating to see, assuming that those are the three key forwards on the roster looking at the next season, who the starters will be. You would assume Bell will, because he started last year, and
Lampkin's starting at center.
Right. So is Donnie Freeman starting? And as I wrote in my piece this morning on the Loud House site, I don't really care who starts. It's who finishes the game, and also if you're looking at the forward spots, that's 80 minutes. The three of them could each play 25 plus minutes. If we're talking about the three forwards, they're all going to get their minutes.
Exactly.
And Bell, he's not as physical, but he's obviously a great shooter, especially when he's just, got a lot of confidence. And I do think, even though he gets a lot of crap for it, that his rebounding and defense got better. Still room for improvement. Donnie Freeman, we all know that he's a highly touted top 10 recruit. He's shown that he can knock down threes. He's physical inside. He's got to have to add strength, obviously still being in high school or prep school. And he's great out in transition. But Davis has really good size, really strong frame, and he can suit up at either the 3 or the 4. And I think it's a great fit. I really do.
I think it's a great fit too, because of all that stuff you mentioned, there's one thing that you might have left out, and that's he can create his own shot.
Sure.
He can create his own shot. And yesterday I talked about how many players on the team can create their own shot from last season.
Right.
Judah Mintz, JJ Starling, and I left out Quadir Copeland. He can do that too.
Sure.
Now you look into this season, we're still waiting on Leffew, but
right.
You have Jyare Davis. JJ can do it. Right there. That's 2 already. And Syracuse definitely needed someone who can create their own shot. And to your point about each of the forwards can do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Bell has an elite trait. He can shoot.
Sure.
Third in the ACC in three-point percentage. There's nothing to sneeze at here. I know I give him a lot of flack that he can't play defense and he can't rebound, but he can shoot.
Yeah.
He can shoot.
You need a shooter or two, right?
Yep.
I mean,
and Donnie, 5-star, McDonald's All-American, like, seems like he's going to be the real deal. And now you got Jyare Davis.
He's an incoming freshman, and that's not a knock on Donnie. He can come in and make an impact right away, but he's also a freshman. And Davis is a veteran player. He's been around for multiple years. And you make a great point there, Jackson. He can create his own scoring opportunities. And he's also, like I said, really good in the mid-range, but he's also can score around the block too. He's just a versatile forward. He's a strong, physical, versatile forward that I think will also be good on defense. And if he can get that 3-point percentage up a little bit, he's going to be great.
Can he just be like low 30s? Like low 30s? Here's the thing that gives me hope about that is because he used to shoot 65-ish% from the free throw line.
Yeah.
And in this past season, he shot over 80%.
Over
now,
80.
I know improving the 3-point shooting is obviously tougher than free throws, but it kind of gives you that, okay.
Get the shot, the stroke down. Yeah.
It's there. Like if you can shoot 80% at the free throw line, you can raise the 3-point percentage just by a few points, get it to around 30%. Honestly, get it to around where Judah Mintz was shooting it last year. It makes the world of difference right there. Guys, I need you all to listen up for this huge announcement. I have been tracking the leaderboards every day, keeping my eye on the scores, putting all my heart into it, and I'm super pumped to announce I am finally on top. That's right. Obviously, I'm talking about the hit mobile game Monopoly Go. You've probably heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great mobile twist on classic Monopoly. You can play anywhere, anytime. You explore hundreds of Monopoly boards from Las Vegas to Camelot to the moon, all while raking in a huge fortune. Charge rent on iconic properties just like classic Monopoly. You can charge your friends rent on your iconic properties or go after their Monopoly money by pulling bank heists and taking wrecking balls to their landmarks. But my favorite part is the leaderboards, where you can see who's a Monopoly tycoon and who's gone bankrupt. So go get yourself on the charts. Download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store and Google Play. It's Locked On's NFL Mock Draft live on April 17th at 7 Eastern, streaming on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on April 17th at 7 Eastern to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft on April 17th at 7 Eastern, streaming live on Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. We're joined by Neil Adler from Inside the Loud House. Always does great work there. Now let's talk about Dakota Leffew. Obviously, he visited Syracuse over the weekend.
Right.
He visited Villanova. He's visiting Xavier. Not at the time of this recording, but when you're watching it on Wednesday, he will be in Xavier. So, how do you think he'd fit if he were to commit to Syracuse?
Oh, I think I'd love to have him. I'd love to have him. He's a really good lead guard, combo guard. He can play the one, he can play the two. I believe he shot, I hope I'm
37% from
37%.
Yeah.
So he can shoot. Good facilitator. They need a lead guard. I mean, that's no disrespect to JG Starling or Chance Westry, or obviously got more coming in. You got Kyle Cuff, et cetera, but they need a lead guard, point guard. So we'll see. You know, there's rumblings that the visit to Syracuse went well. I'm sure it did. Obviously, his head coach at Mount St. Mary's is reportedly joining the Syracuse staff.
Yeah. But Neil, 1 second here. I kept saying lock the doors and don't let him out, but
right.
They let him out.
They let him out. They didn't throw away the key, Jackson. I'll tell you. And Villanova, by all accounts, that visit went well. Xavier's a solid Big East program. And like we were talking about offline, Villanova obviously has had some roster movements as well. So it's, I think the sentiment that Dakota should be a lock to Syracuse because his head coach is headed to Syracuse, I don't buy into that. because could be a lot of other factors involved. You got the NIL stuff. You got fit. You got roster makeup. By all accounts, he gets along well with his, head coach from Mount St. Mary's, who's a terrific coach and a good recruiter. But, if he went to Villanova, it's not like Villanova is a terrible team. And I know people in Syracuse fans would be disappointed, especially given, the whole coaching, ties. But we'll see. I don't think Syracuse – I think the sentiment among some fans, that I interact with on social media, chat rooms, et cetera, some of the same people you talk to, you see – the fact that he didn't commit over the weekend, maybe left, took a little air out of the tire, so to speak. I don't know. I mean, this stuff is so fluid. You never know. I still think Syracuse is in it, but it sounds like they got a fight on their hands, so to speak.
Yeah, I just think we need to all take a little deep breath.
Take a deep breath.
Just take a deep breath. I understand that Eddie Lampkin visited, committed. Jyare Davis visited, committed.
Judah Mintz, according to 8 million analysts, was going to DePaul, and then he committed to Syracuse. And afterwards, and this is an apples to orange, no pun intended in comparison, but afterwards said, I don't know where all these, analyst projections were to DePaul. I never, silently committed to DePaul. You know how all that stuff goes behind the scenes. And a lot of times those analysts, crystal balls are correct, but obviously weren't. We'll see. I don't think it's a slam dunk that Syracuse is going to get Dakota Leffew, but I don't, at least as far as, people I've talked to and just kind of my sentiments, I don't think they're out of it either.
Yeah.
And I guess but it does beg the question, well, clearly Syracuse coaches are very high on him. And if they don't get him, what next?
That's kind of the $1 million question. What I was about to ask you, because lately in the portal, when you look at Syracuse and point guards that they're targeting, Dakota Leffew, obviously. We heard about Jaquan Carlos pretty early on.
Sure.
We were talking about it off camera. We haven't heard anything from Jaquan Carlos. Now, it's not good news. It's not bad news. It's that if you go on Google and you look up Jaquan Carlos potential destinations, you don't find anything. There's no visits scheduled.
Yeah, I haven't seen much about him.
Radio silent with him.
Right.
Do you think Syracuse would just right away, you think they would just pivot to Jaquan Carlos if they don't get Leffew, or even could they get both?
Well, that's an interesting one, and they do have scholarships available. Even let's say, hypothetically, even if Dakota does commit to Syracuse, they'll still have, if my math's correct, and that's never getting 2 left, right? And I've said all along that even if they get a lead, starting point guard, quote unquote, whether it's Dakota or someone else, and they still have these 2 spots after Davis committed, that they could still go out there. I'm not saying they're going to have 13 scholarship players, but they could still go out and get another guard. The problem is that playing time gets really tricky. I mean, they've already got multiple guards on the roster.
It would be Leffew, Starling, Westry's coming back.
More Cuff. No, you've got some, I hate to use the word question marks, but obviously Westry didn't play at all this season, and he was injured for a lot of his freshman year at Auburn.
I'm fine with him being the third, because I'm fine with Chance being the third guard, even if they weren't able to land another one after Leffew if they were to get him, because I know he's got talent. And I keep saying on here that he's the ultimate wild card. My whole point with it was I just don't want to go into the year and we're depending on him to play like big minutes right away.
I think that would be
essentially he could be just a solid contributor. I think we'd all take it.
Yeah.
But if he was to be a superstar, great. I just wouldn't want Chance Westry
I think
to be a starting player.
100%, Jackson. And full disclosure, I've been a Chance Westry fan since like 2000, I guess maybe 19. I believe they offered him in the summer of 19. It was his first high major offer. Obviously was following his recruitment, writing for Loud House about it, and was bummed he didn't, commit to Syracuse, blah, blah, blah. But the talent's there. He was highly ranked. He's super athletic, just a physical, strong, two-way guard, gets after it defensively. Obviously not at least his freshman year at Auburn was not a great three-point shooter, but then again,
I think I looked at his numbers. I saw he was 0%, and I was like, let me look at it closely.
Yeah.
He was 0 for 14. That's
right.
Not very good.
Okay, so it kind of falls in line with some, a lot of the Syracuse guard. But
no, they're not shooting 0%.
Yeah. I'll tell you right now.
If you give Judah Mintz 14 tries from 3, he's going to hit more than 0.
Right, he would. I would say, Jackson, that
no shot at Judah Mintz, by the way.
No. I'm wishing him well. He'll, hope he gets drafted. If Syracuse has their lead point guard, whether it's Dakota or someone else, and to your point, I don't know about this Hofstra point guard, and it's been very quiet. And again, they were linked to making contact with multiple other guards, including Roddy Gale, the New York native from Ohio
I believe
State.
They're out on Gale now.
Yeah, I think so. I wasn't. That might have just been kind of an initial contact, that sort of thing. I saw something. I don't know. If it was from Jeff Goodman. One of the big national reporters put out something on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it today, saying there's going to be more kind of big name guys coming out. Stay tuned. And then he mentioned something about NIL and this and that. I mean, I guess the thing I'll say is the portal window closes, I believe, on May 1st.
Yep.
So guys have to
day after the football second window closes.
It's like
I don't know why the NCAA, by the way,
I don't know all these windows.
Why does one end April 30th, the other ends April 1st?
I don't know. And they also need to, not to go off topic, they need to move the initial portal window for basketball past March Madness. I mean,
I agree, but it's great for content.
Oh, I bring the transfer content on, but I just feel like it's so unfair to these players and coaches trying to, and then the whole NIT thing, and obviously that, play a role with Syracuse. But to answer your question, we'll see about Dakota. We'll see if they have other guys in the mix that, Syracuse coaches like to stay fairly quiet under the radar about this. Obviously, some things come out from other sources and recruiting analysts, et cetera, but I'm sure they have a plan B. We just don't know about it. And to your point, I would agree that if from a guard standpoint, if Syracuse gets Dakota or has another guard of that caliber locked in to replace Judah, quote unquote, and then Starling and Westry, assuming he's fully healthy, is like the third and the primary backup, I like that a lot. And then you throw in Elijah Moore, who I love Elijah. He's such a great kid. And he can obviously score. I'll be fascinated to see how many minutes he gets this upcoming year. And I know you've had some of the guys, analysts on, Jamie and the others, talking about Elijah, and he can score. So if I believe Jamie said it on your program, if he starts making shots, it's going to be tough to keep him out.
He can shoot.
Oh,
he can shoot the basketball.
Pretty sure when you score 67 points in one game, you can shoot.
If you can shoot, you can play anywhere.
You can play.
You can play. It's the 3-pointer is the ultimate equalizer in basketball.
Mm-hmm.
It's why it's oftentimes why you'll see those crazy upsets in March Madness. One team is pulled from 3 and the other team, who was that guy again on Oakland or whatever that beat Kentucky that hit like 1,000,000 threes? Like that's the point. Yeah. So Elijah Moore, I've said, he's kind of a low-end 4-star recruit. Guys like him typically don't make much of an impact in year 1. That's not any disrespect. You can just go look at the map.
No, that's
low-end 4-star, day 1, not usually impactful.
That's fair.
But a lot of those guys
aren't necessarily snipers from 3.
They can't shoot. Right. So if Elijah Moore can shoot next season, I can see him getting 15, 20 minutes.
And to piggyback on that, Jackson, not only can he shoot, but Syracuse doesn't have a ton of other really, really, again, not disrespect anyone, but a ton of really reliable 3-point shooters other than Chris Bell.
Yeah.
So, if they had a couple others that were veteran players, maybe Elijah doesn't see. It'll be fascinating to see. I like you said, I know a lot of fans are anxious about Dakota. They're anxious about getting a point guard. Syracuse is going to get a point guard. It's one way or the other. They have other things, that I'm sure they're, keeping tabs on other players. But they'll get one.
I know a lot of people have thought about Aiden Holloway, but he's visiting Alabama. I don't think that's going to happen. Let's get straight to the point. You want to grow your portfolio to deal with the rising costs and inflation, to pay off your debt or your mortgage, pretty much anything standing in the way of you and financial freedom, right? With Yahoo Finance, you can get access to the news, data, and tools that you need in order to help reach that financial freedom. I've been using Yahoo Finance, our sponsor today, For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or are looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They are the number one finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and it's how Yahoo Finance ensures you have the insight to look at your wealth in its entirety. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. The number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Joined by Neil Adler from Inside the Loud House. Talked a lot about Dakota Leffew and his watch right now. I mean, if you're watching this podcast, I mean, we're waiting.
Yeah.
Take your time. Take all the time you need.
Yeah.
We'll always be here for you.
Yeah.
We're not pressuring you. We understand you're making probably a six-figure decision right here.
I think that's probably
six figures.
Yeah, sure. I've been writing about it some here and there, Jackson. I'll tell you the NIL numbers, just anecdotally and generally, not specifically Syracuse, they're big.
Did you see Umar, the guy from Arizona who transferred to Indiana, Umar Ballo, I believe is how you say his name? He commanded, now he didn't necessarily get it from Indiana. He commanded $1.2 million.
Oh, yeah, I'm seeing
that is madness.
I'm seeing some stuff of and
$1.2 million.
I know.
For a center that can't do anything except be big down low and dunk the ball.
Well, I'll tell you, some of the folks I've talked to and reports I've read, first of all, transfers are commanding more NIL dollars than returnees or obviously high school recruits. And if you look at transfers specifically, commanding the highest on average, or whatever you want to put it, are big men, power forwards and centers, and then lead guards. But yeah, 500,000 to upwards of $1 million, not a problem. Calipari, Arkansas, what, 5-6 million reports? I mean, that's, and Syracuse with Orange United, and I talk to the guys over there, fairly frequently. They're targeting, 2 to 2.5 million, which is on par with a lot of teams. Is it going to be enough? I mean, and that's nothing against them. They're working hard, but the money's just silly now.
It's not honestly the beauty about it, and then we'll transition over to Cuse being disrespected a little. The beauty about it is it almost really doesn't matter. It doesn't. You don't need to get the number one transfer in the portal because of the way college basketball has built their system, which we all accept and love, even though I'm not the biggest fan of it, but
you're not the only one.
You win 5 games in 5 days, you make the NCAA tournament, and once you get in the NCAA tournament, it's one and done. So,
it's true.
And if you get hot from 3, I don't care how much NIL money you're making, you just never know. So that's the beauty of it. Yeah. We don't have to compete with the big boys here. Anyways, so John Rothstein and Joe Lunardi released some brackets, articles, rankings, however you want to call it. Let's start with Joe Lunardi because we know that his favorite team is Syracuse, obviously, and he especially loves the ACC. Like he thinks the ACC is by far and away the best conference in college basketball, right? He did not have Syracuse in his initial bracketology.
He had 7 ACC teams, didn't he?
He did, which I was honestly surprised about.
I saw that today too, and I was hoping we catch up on it tonight. Was not surprised about Syracuse for various reasons, but 7's, that's a pretty sizable number,
Yeah. It's not bad for the ACC, but I'm just like, I understand not Syracuse necessarily being in it, but just some of the teams that he put in there, like Wake Forest.
He had Pitt and Wake. He had NC State.
Wake Forest as an 8 line early on, and I'm like, Hunter Salas, their best player, is gone.
Right.
He's gone.
He was really good.
They're losing Boopy Miller, too. He's gone. I know they brought someone in. He's not as good as Boopy Miller. I can go off on a tangent.
So it was what was it? Pitt, Wake Forest, NC State,
Virginia as like a last four in or whatever.
North Carolina, Duke.
He had Clemson in. And
I don't think he had Virginia in. I think
he had them either last four in or first four out.
Okay.
One of those two.
Right on the bubble. Okay.
Right on the bubble. And he had Clemson, I believe, as an 11. And you're thinking to yourself, well, Clemson made the Elite Eight last year. Well, yeah, Joe Girard's gone, and so is probably PJ Hall. I don't think he's declared yet, but I think he is.
Yeah, I would assume he is, and he's a good.
If he's not, then all bets are off.
Sure,
but
sure.
If I think he's gone, but
yeah,
I just think that it's. Oh, okay. So Syracuse's rosters, we don't know about it yet.
Well, I think that's part of it.
Rosters. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I write some of these articles sometimes about these national pundits, bracketologies, or super early preseason top 25s, or the Sporting News guy who had him in the top 10. I know Mike McAllister talked about that on your show recently, and I was
well, that one was ridiculous.
Well, he put it out. I mean, to be fair, he put it out a couple of days before Mintz declared. Although, frankly, we all knew that. The super early stuff, whether it's bracketology or preseason top 25s, it's super fun content and sparks debate, and it's totally silly right now because we're months away. And like you said, rosters aren't fully known. Guys can still go in the portal over the next 2 weeks. But guys can go in the portal over the next 2 weeks, but not commit until the summer. I mean, I'm not saying that's going to happen for most, prospects, and there's still maybe some high school guys out there that might get picked up. Is Syracuse being disrespected? Well, first of all, I want to tell you that I love Joe Lunardi, and I actually mean that sincerely because I think he takes all the crap from Syracuse fans and the whole just ongoing theme.
I do it out of love, honestly. I don't mean anything personal.
Oh, yeah, of course. No, I know.
It's just all fun.
I think he actually takes it in jest and stride, and he has fun with it. Some people get so, oh, my God. I don't want him to have Syracuse in because the last couple of times when they're on the bubble and he didn't have them in, they got in or vice versa, so.
Are you saying that he's wrong a lot?
Right. Well, yeah, with Syracuse. But he invented bracketology, so I got love for him. I think the thing with Syracuse is that, you don't want to see who the, lead guard that comes in and any other. I assume they're done in terms of guys leaving through the portal. And then if there's any other guys coming in. But the other thing with Syracuse is, and this pertains to some other teams too, but obviously this is our team, they haven't made the NCAA tournament in 3 years, last 3 years. They were 16 and 17, then 17 and 15, 20 and 12 this year. I think Autry did a commendable job this year. Went 9-2 with a tough non-conference, finished 7th in the ACC when they're projected to 10. They won 20 regular season games for the first time in a decade. They had primarily sophomores. Benny was kicked off the team. Chance and Naheem were injured. For a good portion of the season, Justin Taylor was playing slightly out of position, and so was Malik. So I'm not saying it was like an amazingly over the top, Class A season, but I think with all the context and everything, I was bummed they didn't make the tournament, but I think it was a step in the right direction.
I agree.
They had 2 crappy years before that, and I love Jim Boeheim. I went to school there in the 90s, and I love Jim Boeheim. So, but I think it was a step in the right direction. But I don't expect Syracuse to be in. First of all, bracketology projections right now are even more stupid than top 25s because give me a break. But they're again,
Wake Forest at number 8.
They're fun.
Who does Wake Forest have on their team right now?
I don't know. They're fun. Well, does he have Arkansas as a 2 seed? They have one guy on their roster, but he
probably has Arkansas in there. I know he has Duke as like the number 1 overall team, and I'm like, well, that makes sense because they actually have a team right now.
Yeah, they are loaded. I mean, again, a lot of young guys, and I still think that it's great to have 5-star freshmen, and I'm pumped about Donnie and Elijah as a top 10 shooting guard per 247 Sports. But transfers are the way to go, man. I mean, NC State. Weren't they all transfers?
I think.
And they didn't have a great. Syracuse had a better regular season.
The revisionist history on NC State is insane. They just caught lightning in a bottle.
They did. But I just like having better. So is Syracuse being disrespected? I don't know if they're being disrespected. I think this is just given the context of this past year, the last few years, and not knowing the full roster, I think anyone that it feels Syracuse should be, a high bracketology seed or really high in preseason top 25s as it stands right now. I don't know. I will say this, and I wrote about it the other day. I think their schedule is more manageable in the non-conference, and I think remains to be seen about the ACC.
Full non-conference is
it's not fully out, but they're not going to Hawaii.
I remember I did a podcast on it, and I haven't heard anything from it since. I don't think anyone's heard anything from it yet. I haven't seen anything about that Vegas tournament.
Oh well, they're in discussions, but it's not said or it's not clear whether they'd be. My sense in talking to some people is that they will play in it at some point, but it's not a guarantee they'll play in it this year. They could. I don't know for sure either way. But they are playing in New York City, in that preseason tournament. But you're right, the rest of their non-conference. But I don't think it'll be quite as difficult. They're not necessarily going to play Gonzaga and Tennessee out in Hawaii. And I also think the ACC schedule. I mean, they only, if memory serves correct, they have Duke and North Carolina only at home. They got
North Carolina, Virginia, all at home, not on the road. So
Miami is going to be a pretty good team, and I think, at least on paper, and they're a road game. But, again, this is all speculation, but I still think they're moving in a positive direction. And I know the fact that a ton of guys that were on the team this past year hit the portal before Syracuse got Lampkin and now Davis, last night. You get anxious about that, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. And so while a bunch of guys bolted early, let's see how it all looks when it's all said and done. There's still, again, 2 weeks for guys to enter the portal, and then you see how things shake out.
Yep. Well, Neil, Syracuse better be in the tournament next season. That's all I'll say. They better be in it.
I'm putting money on it.
Another March Madness with Syracuse not in it. I can't do it anymore. You've gone 3 years without it. Not doing 4. Neil, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for having me on as always. And the only thing I'll say about that is it stinks when Syracuse, my alma mater, is not in it, but it's a little less stressful. I ain't going to lie.
Oh, I want the stress.
You want the stress. All right,
yes.
Let's do the stress.
I want the stress, okay?
Right.
My favorite hockey team has been in the playoffs. It's going to be now 5 straight years. I love it. You get really, really stressed. You don't know what's going to happen. I'm a Miami Heat fan as well. It gets pretty dicey in those playoffs. Obviously they usually overachieve.
They do.
And of course, I'm also a New York Jets fan, so I don't know what the playoffs are anymore. Last time they made it was 3rd grade. So
right.
And I know a lot of my listeners and viewers are Buffalo Sabres fans. I get it. It's a long road to eventually get to contention, but I promise you want the stress.
All right.
Neil, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, my man. Appreciate it, Jackson.